Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The next discussion will be about what the conditions are. What are those conditions for fasting in the month of Ramadan to be an obligation on a person? So the first condition is that a person has to be a Muslim for fasting in the month of Ramadan to be an obligation. Next condition is that a person has to be sane and not insane. Third condition is that a person has to be baligh, mature, has to have reached the age of puberty. Fourth condition is that a person has to be healthy and not sick. And fifth condition being with respect to a woman that she has to be free from menstrual bleeding and postnatal bleeding if she has given birth. And the last condition is that a person has to be a resident in his hometown, in his home city, and not a traveler during the month of Ramadan. So these are the conditions for fasting in the month of Ramadan to be an obligation on a person in the first place. Now a bit more detail with regards to these conditions. With respect to being baligh, being mature. So the fuqaha, the ulama, they mention that if the signs of puberty are experienced by either boy or girl, then the boy and the girl will be regarded as mature, even if these signs occur at an earlier age. So, for example, if a boy experiences a wet dream, he will be considered to be mature legally from a Sharia legal perspective. If a girl, for example, starts to experience menstruation, then even if it's at a younger age, she will be considered to be mature by Sharia. If the boy or girl does not experience any sign of puberty and they reach the age of 15 lunar years, that is, then automatically by default in the Sharia will regard them to be mature. So this is very important to note. So we have kids that are 15 years old, even if we feel that they have not experienced any sign of puberty, automatically Sharia already regards them as adults, and therefore they are obliged to keep the fast of Ramadan also. Now, with respect to being healthy as being a condition for the fast in Ramadan to be an obligation. So the people that will be exempted by this condition are, for example, a pregnant woman or a nursing woman, okay, with condition that they have a legitimate fear for their own health or for the health of their baby. With respect to the pregnant woman, she has a fear for the health of her fetus. She has a fear for the health of her fetus. So these are people who will be exempted from being obliged to fast in the month of Ramadan because the condition of sickness is not there. Also, a person who is experiencing any other sickness, whatever the sickness may be, whether it's a flu, whatever kind of sickness. Also, one, for example, who is undergoing severe thirst and he fears that if he attempts to fast, this might be lethal to his health. Now, when we talk about health being a condition for fasting in the month of Ramadan to be an obligation, a person all of the people that will be exempted with respect to this condition will be those sick people who either fear that the sickness will be prolonged by fasting, or even this will also be in relation to those people that are healthy and they fear that if they do fast, they will become sick. Or, for example, those people will also will be included who are sick and they fear that if they fast, the sickness will worsen. So all of these people will be included. Now, when these people have a fear for sickness, that fear must be genuine. It can't just be a delusion. So the fear has to be based on either a person's own past experience or it's based on experience of someone else with the same sickness, or it has to be some other obvious sign of potential harm, or it has to be, for example, the opinion of a qualified Muslim doctor who is upright in his character and is not a sinful transgressing person. So these are all things to take note of. Now, with respect to a person who is a traveler, so he will be exempted from being obliged to fast in the month of Ramadan because being a resident in a person's hometown is a condition for the fasting to be an obligation. So, first of all, for the traveler, it is still better for him to fast. Even though he is exempted from fasting, even though he's exempted from fasting in the month of Ramadan, is better for him to fast. Now, the exemption will only occur if the person has already commenced his journey and is outside of the city limits at the time of true dawn. At the time of true dawn, when the fast starts, when the time of fasting starts. If a person is still within the city limits, uh, at the time of true dawn, he is not exempted from fasting. He must fast on that day, even though he intends to travel that day. He intends to embark on his journey. The other thing is that that person is considered to be a traveler by legal definition in the Sharia who intends to go on a journey that is at least approximately 77 kilometers away. It's not a journey which is somewhere close by. It has to be 77 kilometers away. So that person will be considered a traveler and he will be exempted from fasting if he is outside of the city limits and has already commenced his journey when the true dawn starts, when the true dawn happens. Now, with respect to the woman who is experiencing menstrual bleeding in the month of Ramadan, and also with respect to the woman who is experiencing postnatal bleeding in the month of Ramadan, these two people, they are not only exempted from fasting in the month of Ramadan, but they are not allowed at all to fast in the month of Ramadan. It will be a sinful act to fast for them. And they have no choice but to make up the fast that they missed because of these circumstances in the month of Ramadan. They will have no choice but to make up these fasts at a later time outside of the month of Ramadan.